Okay. Gertrude Amelia Carlson. My mother's name, maiden name. She was born in Sweden. Had a brother, younger brother. Her father left Sweden right after the boy was born. The Swedes' inheritance all went through the oldest son. If you weren't the oldest, you didn't get anything. Women didn't get anything, and the second male got nothing. And he was the second male, so he headed to the U.S. to try to make money. He went up to Alaska and worked the gold fields and such, and they got shut down by World War I. They couldn't get across. The mother got tuberculosis, and she died. Very sad story. My mother and her little brother. She was in a mill. They kept her in the windmill to keep her away from everybody else. She had to be quarantined. And they would go down and look at her through the windows, that sort of thing. She passes. The oldest sister, it's tradition that when you lose your wife, you marry one of her sisters. And so the older sister is going to bring the children over to meet up with the father, who's now in Snohomish County, down from Alaska, with the idea that they'll get married. She arrives, it takes a while, but she finally arrives with the children, and he's interested in somebody else, and he's not interested in marrying her. So she leaves the children and basically leaves them and goes off on her own. The father goes out into the woods, and in 6 months he's dead. He got killed in a logging accident. So the aunt's gone, the father's gone, the two children are left. Some people from Los Angeles take the boy, they adopt him, they leave her. She's left in a tent in some people's backyard.
In Alaska?
No, in Fall City, Snohomish County.
Oh, okay.
He had come down there. And so they all came to Snohomish County.
So they split him up?
Yeah, they took the boy and left for. The people they heard that they had the two kids. The people wanted one of them. They thought they wanted her. So they come up to get her. They decide she's too old. They like the boy. They take the boy and they leave her.
That's brutal.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no social network or anything.
Mm-hmm.
She's all completely on her own, and she gets. Moves around from person to person. She starts working as a domestic. She would be asked later in life about, how rough was that? Wasn't that horrible? And she would always say something, well, there's a certain advantage to being able to make your own decisions. And she was very, very pragmatic about everything. She said that she had been lucky enough to be with kind people. She lived with various families. She took on jobs. She became a cook in a restaurant. She ran the inn at the Big Four. She worked at the restaurant in Fall City that's still there. She managed that when she was 19. She put herself through normal school up in Bellingham, got her teacher's certificate.
Is that what normal school is?
That was normal school. It was 2-year normal school, and you got a teaching certificate.
I haven't heard that.
Yeah. And she came out of there, and my dad's mother was the president of the school board outside of Everett, where she had been elected to the school board. They had 12 voters in her school district, and she was elected to the school board, and the guy that was running against her didn't get any votes. And he realized even his wife hadn't voted for him. And so she hires the new teacher, which turns out to be my mom. My father's down working in Boulder Dam, and he comes up. He's an explosives guy down there, fighter. He comes up here, meets my mother. My grandmother made him take his brother back to school. My mother had thrown his brother out of school for putting a mouse in her desk, and he had to take him back to get him back in school. They met, and then I'm the result of that. As my sister, their marriage, but later, and her brother came to see her from out Los Angeles. She got him up here. They had stayed in touch with each other. He comes up here. He and my dad's brother go to Lake Stevens together to go swimming. They both drowned. Double drowned.
Who drowned?
My dad's brother and my mother's brother.
Is that
Yeah.
at the same time? in the
Yes,
same place?
together. My dad said he thinks his brother pulled him down.
Wow.
His brother had some problems. He was epileptic, and he had webbed feet. He had a crossed eye. He had some physical problems, but was very strong individual. And my dad would say that he thinks that that's what happened was his brother. And he would say, I think my brother killed her brother. It's a little bit rough, but that's the way he absorbed it. So then his father went to see a doctor in Everett to have his sinuses looked at, and they'd used a dirty instrument on him, and he was dead in a week from a blood infection because it was right before sulfa. They didn't have sulfa yet. He got a blood infection. He died. Turns out later that my best friend is a doctor in Everett, and we're drinking beer one night and talking. I realized it was his father that had whacked my grandfather. And I had grown up with this story about his father being a quack. Well, he wasn't a quack.
Then you meet his
Yeah, then
son.
you meet his son, who's also an eye surgeon. You know, these aren't quacks. This was, but that's what my grandmother would say. He went to this horrible doctor and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, you can understand
Killed him, yeah. And so we get that straightened out. It was your father, yeah. But my father and mother get married. She goes down and visits him while he's fighting in Los Angeles. She meets some of the fighters that he knew and comes back, and his manager was a guy named Frank Moran who fought Jack Johnston for the title in France. And Moran told my mother that my dad was good enough to be champion, but he wouldn't train. He didn't have the heart for it. And we all knew that he didn't have the heart, and we knew he was lazy, so it all made sense. Yeah. But his story was that he had killed a guy in the ring, and he hit him. He knocked an older fighter out, and the guy went back home and committed suicide. And he took pretty much responsibility for that and quit, which was probably what he wanted to do anyway. He needed to get out of that business. He had 24 fights and never lost a fight, which is a hellacious record when boxing was at its prime. Right. He was an extremely good fighter and was recognized as such. And he carried that all of his days. He was never afraid of anybody. But he was not. He never pushed it at all. He never acted that way. He never said that to anybody. But his demeanor was such that people that didn't know his background wouldn't challenge him. They just wouldn't challenge him. He could handle almost anybody who was out of control. He could just.
Let's go back to your mom.
Yeah, she ran. My father started into the beer business after they got married. He had worked a couple deals to get his control of some breweries. Breweries were just coming back online after Prohibition, and they were up. The unions owned most of them because they hadn't been paid wages. They had tried to run the breweries and they had failed, and there was wage problems, and they were indebted to the unions, and so he started dealing with the unions, and he knew Dave Beck. And he knew some of the other
Teamster.
He knew some of the other union guys.
He was king.
Right. Well, Beck and these people had come out of Everett. Beck was from Everett, and many of the people it was a smaller world then. A lot of these guys knew each other, and a lot of them had been bootleggers, So they had that kind of. It was a little bit like pot growing. You knew who was doing it, but it wasn't really frowned on. But at the same time, they're the ones that had the money. And Joe Hart was an old bootlegger from Everett, gambler, bootlegger. Joe had done a year in McNeil for bootlegging when he was 19. And he wouldn't flip on anybody, and therefore he became. Joe knew all the politicians. He knew Jackson, Magnuson, Rossellini.
Because he could be trusted. He didn't flip. I mean,
that's right, and
right.
he was cool.
Yeah.
And Rossellini would accept money from him. Rossellini never got nailed for bribery, ever. And it was because he knew who he was taking money from.
I see.
It wasn't because he didn't take money. We gave him money. We gave him 10 grand in the B&M in Marysville to his bag man. He never touched this stuff. But Joe was the one that handled the transaction. He would take anything from Joe. And Joe financed the first brewery. And but Joe was kind of a double dealer. He just had to turn on you. And he did that to my dad. They had a buy and sell arrangement. And this is during the war, so beer is really hard to get a hold of. Everything's rationed. And Joe put the squeeze on the old man. It was a $40,000 buy or sell.
some serious money then.
It was very serious money. And my dad did not have 40,000, but he was running the brewery. Joe was over here in Everett. Joe calls, says, I'm going to buy you out, blah, blah, blah. And so he had a weekend to get the money together. And he put the word out in Everett and in Seattle and at every bar that he could get to that he was selling beer off the back dock in Walla Walla. People came over in taxi cabs. They came over in pickups, cars, and they were filling them up with beer and just paying him. And he was selling the beer off the back dock. It was totally illegal. But he put together $40,000 in that weekend selling beer out of the back of the brewery. He took the money over, paid Joe off. The liquor board heard about it. They got all upset, and he got charged with some kind of thing for what he had done. So he's got a hearing in front of the liquor board coming up in a couple of months. Well, the guy that had been his manager, Steve Ryan, it's a family friend, Uncle Steve, and whose brother Ray was sheriff of Snohomish County. Steve was the manager for my dad at the brewery. And so when Steve had just gotten a job, he got a job with Ramco, and they were shipping him to Arabia. And he came to tell my dad that he had got this job and he was going to be leaving him. And he said, I thought he'd be upset. And he said he wasn't upset. He just patted me on the back and said, I'm happy for you. That's great. And then he found out what he had done. What he did was, when he knew Steve was leaving, he went to the liquor board and said, gentlemen, I was so ashamed when I found out what had happened. That was my manager. I didn't know anything about it. He started selling beer off the back dock, but I let him go just as soon as I found out about it. He's
That's
no
slick.
longer with us.
That is slick.
They fined him $500.
That's slick.
And he's gone. Yeah, he's out of the buy and sell.
Making the
Everything's
most of an opportunity, isn't it?
And it's Steve's later. He said, "I found out that he had told them I did it." Which he thought was pretty funny. Yeah, those guys, they were always it was always something going on. But these were people that started with no money. They had no background. They had no education. They didn't have anything. And anything you got, the Democrats were the party of cash. If you needed something done politically, you took cash to the Democrats in an envelope.
What about the Republicans?
The Republicans were contracts.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, they used the lawyers. You went through their lawyers. You made sure that they had their businesses were, because they had the business. The Democrats just had the cash. And so they ran two different systems. Well, the Republicans would take cash. We gave cash to them too.
Right.
But and government
Running through your lawyers
but
is
you run it
cleaner.
through. Well, yeah, you end up with a con. Well, okay, if they help you do this, then you're going to get somebody else to take care of a contract. It's just much more sophisticated and much more. They get a lot more out of it.
Is that still today? Is that still
I
something
don't know.
that pervades?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. The cash to the politicians really got screwed up. They started getting honest, and they screwed up a system they didn't understand was there, and they screwed themselves. They've done it. That's what's happened to the parties. Is they've fallen apart because of all the little intricacies of the back scratching that went on inside of there, got obliterated, and if there's no back scratching, there's no party.
Right.
It's not going to function.
Yeah.
and the money all left.
There was a game. There was a way of doing things.
And that was it. And they were it. They controlled it, and they decided who would run and who wouldn't run, and all those things. They lost all that, and it just switched it to the rich guys. They just forget the party. You don't need it. If you got somebody who's going to finance, that wants something done, it's the same thing. Again, you're talking to individuals who want something,
Right.
and it's just a much more efficient way for them, but it's not good for the system.
Right.
If you're going to have corruption, you need it to have it spread around.
There has to be rules to the corruption,
there has
right?
to be rules to it, and you can't just do that.
Right.
Which is, and I'm not sure, I wouldn't know which party, I have no party affiliations. I've been through both of them, I've seen both of them, I don't see any difference in them. There's social ideas that are just put up like smoke screens, but it's good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck with those guys.
Well, we left your mom, but that's okay.
Oh, yeah, oh gosh.
We don't have to get back to your mom if you don't want to.
Oh, no, okay, my mom.
We've got 10 minutes.
Oh, okay.
And she's worthy of more than that.
Oh, yeah. No, my dad took off at one point. My poor mom, she got rid of me, or got me out of there. Finally got rid of me, and then she and he went to Washington D.C. and she went to work for the House Banking Currency Committee as a secretary. She started for free, and they finally got her on the payroll. And he just volunteered. They just walked into the House Banking Currency Committee and volunteered, and they kept him. They loved him. He was so out of the box, and she was just a sweetheart, and she was so good at taking care of things. She had ran all of his businesses. She took care of everything. He couldn't function without her. And she took care of her family. She cooked, she cleaned, she did everything. She moved. If there was anything that had to be done, Gertrude did it. And he would talk about it a lot. I'm a lot like him. We aren't all that helpful. But she people, every once in a while somebody would ask her, if you really marry the right guy. And because he was a horrible father, he's a terrible father. We all admitted that. Even he admitted that. But he was a great guy. He was just involved. He was smart. And if there was action going on, he would have an opinion. He had a lot of respect. Other people really respected him. And she would say that, it's been kind of rough, but he was the excitement. He brought excitement into her life. He was involved. I mean, this guy tried to bring down the Federal Reserve System. It's an
undertaking.
That's an undertaking. And she was there. I mean, she wrote. He couldn't write anything down. She had to write for him. She had to do all of his stuff, take care of everything, and she basically did that. And just was this wonderful person who I've just never known a better human being than she was. And to have come through what she did and not be scarred by it, you could scare her. And
where were you the day she passed?
I was about 2 inches from her on the other side of a sheetrock wall. Her bed was pushed up against one side, my bed was pushed up on the other side.
And where were you?
In California. She went in Encinitas at my sister's house. She had been down there we got her down there. We sent her down to California. She was
sick, yeah?
Yeah, she had congestive heart failure. We didn't realize how bad. They got her stabilized, got her home. And then for the next 6 months, we were all kind of came in and out and visited. And Lisa and I went and lived there for 3 months. And gave my sister a break in taking care of her. Lisa was just wonderful. She and Lisa really loved each other.
Yeah, I could see Lisa being caretaker like that.
Oh, yeah. And Gertrude was very... for her to see Lisa show up was the answer of a prayer. My selection of girlfriends and ladies and women that I would come home with.
Suspect at best.
Sometimes it was in pairs. I lived with 2 women for a year. She
Probably her right there, isn't it?
yeah.
Wall
Oh, okay.
right next to my
It's Lisa.
Yeah, she's
The
got
angel.
rats in her wall, and she's calling up to tell me. We're on camera here.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot.
Yeah. Okay.
Shut the door already.
Well, I can.
Another 5
I'm going
minutes.
to tell a rat story now. She's got rats in her wall. The rats in the wintertime have driven the rats into the house, and they come up, so I have to get the rats
Okay,
out.
so that was in Encinitas.
Yeah, she passed in Encinitas. The night that she went, I was downstairs. It was a 2-story shotgun little condominium. And I was downstairs sitting on the couch, and my sister's bedroom and my mom were upstairs, different bedrooms upstairs. And I heard my sister and my mom talking to each other in the room, and I heard the voices, and then I heard some other voices, and I wasn't paying a lot of attention. And then when I went back up, my mother had gone kind of unconscious. I looked in on her, and I went and laid down in the other bed, and then I heard my mom talking to someone, and I just stayed in bed and listened to it for a while, and then through the process of this, realizing that she was gone, and talking to my sister, I found out my sister hadn't been in the room.
Was that right?
Yeah, I don't know who she was talking to,
Nurse.
but there were 2 voices.
Really?
Yeah.
What do you figure?
I have no idea, other than just she was talking to herself in 2 voices. That's all I can come up with. But she was by herself. And
Then
my niece, I'm in the room. There's also a phone machine. Phone's in the same room as I'm in. My mom's in the next room. There's just this sheetrock wall between the beds. And I'm laying in bed, the phone goes off, and it's my niece, and she's in Japan. I'm not sure I can finish the story. But I just let her talk on because I didn't know how to hook them up.
right.
She left us. God, I can't do this.
Just take a break. You want me to get a napkin?
Well, I really don't care for this.
No, we can stop it if you want.
Yeah, no, it's not a problem. But she left this really wonderful message.
Who did?
My niece
Oh, she did? Okay.
on the phone machine for my mom, who at that moment was
So she
Passing.
had this, she
Just
had
passing.
this,
she just
there was this telepathy or something that she would leave that message at the point. It was almost like she was there, right?
yeah she was there.
Yeah.
I was
Well,
there.
maybe that was, you talk about the other voice. Maybe that was maybe there was a cryptic conversation going on there.
No, don't.
Yeah, that
don't
one you can't,
don't
yeah.
even really think about it that
Yeah.
much. Other than that's what happened. I heard the voices. She was alone. I thought it was, I actually thought it was my
Sister.
dad.
Oh, you
But-
did really?
Yeah. But there was nobody else in the room. And then Sarah called from Japan, left this wonderful message that I just laid there and listened to. And then after the message, I got up and went around the corner and realized that she was gone. My sister had walked in and said, she's gone. So and the Alaska Airlines was wonderful. I flew down there 3 times for like $50 a shot.
Bereavement.
Yeah,
fair.
they put me right on. There
Oh,
was
yeah,
no
that's-
problem. It's, I
That's
call
what
up.
built that airline.
Yeah, and I was really, they were wonderful. And the last time I went, Lisa's like, I had gone and she would get better, and then I would go and she'd just fail, and I would get better. And my sister called and said, I think she's getting close. And so I told Lisa, I need to go. And Lisa's like, you've been there 3 times, and she never goes. She's not going. And I had to force the issue to go, and then I just made it. I mean, I pulled in that night. I just made it.
That's a rare thing.
Yeah, I just made it, and she recognized me, and she was scolding me for coming.